The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the ancient village of Yangzhai. Dr. Wei Chen, a fresh-faced doctor from the city, pulled up to the outskirts in his little hatchback, its tires sputtering like an asthmatic cat. As he stepped out, he looked like he had just walked off a fashion runway, clad in a crisp white lab coat and trendy sneakers that seemed out of place among the rustic homes. The villagers, a collection of weathered faces with deeply furrowed brows, eyed him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, like he was a brightly colored bird in a flock of crows. "Hey there. I'm Dr. Wei," he shouted, flashing a grin that could charm the most hardened of skeptics. "I'm here to help." A hush fell over the crowd, and then a husky old woman cackled, "What's a fancy doctor like you doing in a place like this? You lost your way to the city hospital?" Her laughter was infectious, causing a ripple of chuckles among the villagers. "No, ma'am. I'm here to treat your ailments," Dr. Wei replied, his voice thick with enthusiasm. "I hear you have some remarkable water from a well that can cure anything." The laughter died, replaced by whispers. The villagers exchanged glances, a tapestry of intrigue and superstition woven across their faces. It was then that Dr. Wei felt a shiver crawl down his spine, an unsettling premonition that something was off. But he brushed it aside. After all, he was a doctor. He believed in science, not folklore. As he walked further into the village, he spotted the well. It loomed like an ancient sentinel, its stone walls covered in moss and mystery. Locals kept their distance, casting wary glances at the depths within. A sign nearby, half hidden by weeds, read, "Beware the evil spirit." Dr. Wei chuckled to himself. Surely, he could face a little folklore. What could possibly go wrong? "Are you really going to drink from that?" a voice piped up. Dr. Wei turned to find a young woman, her hair tied back with a bright red ribbon, eyeing him with both skepticism and amusement. "I'm Ah Fun, the village herbalist. You might want to reconsider." "Nonsense," he declared with a theatrical flourish. "I'm here to prove that science can unravel any mystery, even an evil spirit." Ah Fun raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained. "I hope you brought more than just your charm and good looks to save us." "I've got a whole bag of medical supplies," he said, patting the oversized satchel slung across his shoulder. "Plus, I'm a licensed doctor." What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, she muttered, grinning despite herself. Dr. Wei approached the well, peering into its depths. The water was surprisingly clear, shimmering under the fading sunlight. "See? Looks perfectly fine to me." He scooped up a small container and filled it with the well water, holding it up triumphantly. "Let's see if it really has healing powers." As he turned to face the villagers, he heard a strange noise, a soft, echoing whisper that seemed to slither from the well. He shook his head, attributing it to the wind. "All right, who needs a doctor?" he called, waving the container. An elderly man stepped forward, his gnarled hands shaking. "I've got arthritis, Doc. Can that water help?" "Of course." Dr. Wei replied, his confidence soaring. "Drink this and let's see what happens." With a dramatic flourish, he poured a bit of the well water into a cup and handed it to the man. The villagers held their breath as he took a tentative sip. A few seconds passed, and then, he dropped the cup, eyes wide in disbelief. "Oh. Was that supposed to happen?" Dr. Wei asked, panic creeping into his voice. The man gasped, clutching his throat. "I feel young again." He began to dance around, throwing his arms in the air, and the villagers erupted in laughter, their earlier tension dissolving into a carefree mirth. "I'll take 10 gallons of that," another villager called out, and soon Dr. Wei found himself surrounded by eager patients, all clamoring for their share of the miraculous well water. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Dr. Wei felt a rush of exhilaration. He had arrived in Yangzhai hoping to make a difference, and instead, he had become the center of attention. With each cup he handed out, he imagined the stories he'd tell back in the city, tales of a doctor who discovered a magic well that healed all ailments. The villagers, meanwhile, continued to chuckle at his antics, enjoying the newfound joy that had swept through their lives. However, beneath the laughter, a dark undercurrent began to swirl. That night, as the moon hung high and bright, Dr. Wei returned to his makeshift clinic, ready to analyze the samples he had collected from the well. He carefully poured the water into beakers, expecting to see some strange microbes under his microscope. Instead, what he found made his blood run cold. There, swirling under the lens, was a dark, shadowy figure, undulating like smoke but somehow sinister, almost alive. What the? He leaned closer, peering intently. As he did, a sudden chill crept into the room, and the lights flickered. He jumped back, heart racing. Just a power surge, he muttered, trying to calm himself. Nothing to worry about. The next morning, a line of villagers formed outside his clinic, many with ailments he hadn't seen before, fainting spells, anxiety, and even bizarre hallucinations of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their homes. Dr. Wei began to jot down notes, trying to connect the dots, all the while brushing off his earlier concerns. Maybe it's just a coincidence, he thought, pouring himself a cup of coffee. People get sick, and they find comfort in the well water. It's natural. But then came the screams. From his window, Dr. Wei watched as villagers rushed past, panic-stricken and wide-eyed. "They're coming! They're coming for us," one man shouted, his voice laced with terror. Dr. Wei's heart pounded in his chest as he rushed outside, abandoning his coffee. "What's happening?" he shouted, but no one heard him. The villagers were darting toward the well, drawn by an unseen force. "Wait!" he called, sprinting after them, his mind racing. Had he really unleashed something? Had he brought the evil spirit back to life? As he reached the well, he skidded to a stop, breathless and bewildered. A group of villagers surrounded it, their faces pale and drawn. They were entranced, staring into the depths, their expressions eerily blank. "Guys! Snap out of it!" Dr. Wei yelled, waving his arms. "This isn't safe." But his voice seemed to vanish into thin air. Just then, one of the villagers, a woman with wild hair and a crazed expression, turned to him, eyes glowing. "You've awakened it," she screamed. "You must pay the price." A surge of fear coursed through him, and before he could process what was happening, the villagers turned on him, lunging forward with a fervor that made his heart race. "Get away!" Dr. Wei shouted, retreating. But it was too late. The villagers, now transformed, reached for him, dragging him closer to the well's edge. "No! This isn't happening!" He fought against them, his doctor instincts kicking in, but their strength was overwhelming. "Help!" he cried, desperation bubbling to the surface as he glanced around for someone, anyone to pull him back. It was then that he saw Often standing apart from the fray, a look of determination on her face. "Let him go," she yelled, rushing forward, and with a powerful shove, she broke through the throng, pulling Dr. Wei back just as he teetered on the edge. "Are you crazy?" she huffed, panting as she dragged him away from the well. "You can't just play with ancient curses." "I didn't mean to," he protested, still shaken. "I thought." "Clearly," she interrupted, "you didn't think at all." As the villagers began to shake off their stupor, Looking around in confusion, Dr. Wei realized they had only moments before the spirit fully took hold. He needed to act fast. "Listen," he shouted, gathering everyone's attention. "We need to close the well. We have to stop drinking that water. It's the only way." Ah Fen nodded in agreement, rallying the villagers. "We can do this together. We need to remember who we are." As the villagers rallied around her, Dr. Wei felt a strange mix of hope and dread. Could they really fight this evil spirit together? Dr. Wei could feel the tension in the air as he watched the villagers slowly regain their senses, blinking as if waking from a dream. Ah Fen stood at his side, determination radiating from her. "We need to act fast," she urged, glancing back at the well, which seemed to pulse ominously, as if it were alive and aware of the commotion above. "We need to seal it," Dr. Wei said, his mind racing. "But how? I can't just toss a couple of rocks on it and hope for the best." "There's a ritual," Ah Fen said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But we need to gather the right herbs and perform it at sunset. It's our only hope." A sense of urgency swept through Dr. Wei as he nodded. "Okay, let's do it." He turned to the villagers, who were now whispering among themselves, fear still etched on their faces. "We need everyone to help. Gather anything you can from your homes that relates to the well, anything you think might help us seal it." As the villagers began to disperse, some running toward their homes and others toward the edge of the village where wild herbs grew, Dr. Wei took a deep breath. "Ah Fen, what do we need?" "We need sage, salt, and some of the local herbs used for protection," she replied, her eyes scanning the area. "But we also need something to represent the village, a token of our strength." "Let's use that stone," he said, pointing to a large, flat rock near the well, inscribed with symbols that looked ancient. "It looks important." Ah Fen nodded in agreement, and together they approached the stone, carefully prying it from the ground. It was heavier than it looked, and they struggled to lift it. "Teamwork," she said with a smirk, a hint of humor breaking through the tension. Once they managed to haul the stone back to the center of the village, they found others returning with handfuls of herbs and small tokens. One elderly man held up a rusted charm, its surface covered in protective symbols. "This has been in my family for generations. It's said to ward off evil," he proclaimed, his eyes glinting with hope. "Perfect," Dr. Wei said, taking the charm from the man's trembling hands. He looked at Ah Fen, who was sorting through the herbs. "What's next?" "We need to set up a circle around the stone," she instructed, gathering the items and laying them out methodically. "It will help focus our energies." As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the villagers formed a loose circle around the stone. Dr. Wei felt a swell of camaraderie as they all worked together, united by a common goal. Ah Fen began to chant softly in the local dialect, her voice rising and falling like the gentle breeze. Dr. Wei felt a strange warmth spread through him as he joined in the chant, his scientific mind wrestling with the cultural significance of the ritual. They were invoking something powerful, something that transcended logic. The air around them crackled with anticipation as the shadows deepened, and the well loomed behind them like a dark sentinel. Suddenly, a cold wind whipped through the village, causing the villagers to shiver. Dr. Wei looked at Ah Fen, who was now chanting louder, her focus unwavering. "It's responding," she said, her voice steady despite the rising tension. A low rumble echoed from the well, vibrating through the ground. Dr. Wei's heart raced as he glanced back, feeling the pull of the darkness creeping toward them. "We need to finish this now," he shouted, trying to rally the villagers. "Everyone, hold hands," often instructed, her voice cutting through the chaos. They formed a chain, each person grasping the hands of their neighbors, creating a powerful web of unity. With their hands linked, they leaned in closer to the stone. Dr. Wei could feel the energy of the villagers surging through him, a mix of fear, determination, and hope. Often raised the charm high above her head, and the villagers echoed her chant, a rising tide of sound that swirled around them. As they reached a crescendo, a blinding flash of light erupted from the well. Dr. Wei squinted against the brightness, feeling a pull at his core. Shadows twisted and spiraled, coiling like smoke as the spirit within the well thrashed against their chant. "Stay strong," often urged, her voice unwavering. "We're stronger together." With each repetition of their chant, the well began to shudder, the stone vibrating beneath their feet. "It's working!" Dr. Wei exclaimed, his voice mingling with the rising energy. But just as they seemed to gain ground, a bone-chilling scream pierced the air. The villagers faltered, the energy wavering as the evil spirit retaliated. "Don't let go!" Dr. Wei yelled, clutching Afan's hand tightly. He felt the heat of her determination seep into him. "Again," she shouted, her voice fierce. They dug deep, summoning every ounce of strength as they renewed their chant, their voices harmonizing in a powerful invocation. As the final words escaped their lips, a wave of light erupted from the charm in Afan's hand, spilling across the ground like liquid sunshine. The shadows recoiled, twisting back toward the well as if caught in a vortex, howling in fury. Dr. Wei felt the energy surge through him, pushing him forward. "We can't stop now," he urged, willing the villagers to push through the fear. The well's darkness surged and pulsed, a swirling mass of shadow and light fighting for dominance. With one final, resounding chant, the light enveloped them all, exploding outward in a brilliant display. The shadows screamed, twisting violently before they were sucked back into the well with a force that rattled the very ground beneath their feet. The well trembled violently, the ancient stones cracking as a deep rumble echoed through the valley. Dr. Wei stumbled, falling back against the charm. The energy shifted, and in an instant, silence enveloped the village. The villagers blinked, glancing around in confusion, unsure of what had just transpired. "Did we do it?" someone whispered, breaking the silence. Dr. Wei looked at the well, which now stood still, no longer ominous but almost serene. "I think so," he replied, breathless. "I think we did it." As the villagers slowly released their hands, the atmosphere shifted from tense fear to a wave of relief and disbelief. They erupted into cheers, embracing one another, the bonds of community reinforced by their shared experience. Afan turned to Dr. Wei, her eyes sparkling with joy. "You didn't think you'd come to Yangzhai without learning a little bit of magic, did you?" Dr. Wei chuckled, the sound light with relief. "I guess I underestimated the power of belief." "We all did," she said, smiling. "But it's not just magic. It's the strength we have when we come together." As the sun finally set, casting a gentle glow over the village, Dr. Wei felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had come to this village thinking he would be the savior, the doctor who fixed things with science. Instead, he found that healing came from the community, from their beliefs, their unity, and their resilience. They gathered around the well, now a symbol of their strength rather than their fear. The villagers began to share stories, laughter echoing through the night as they celebrated their victory. Dr. Wei listened, feeling a warmth in his heart. He realized he had become part of something greater, a tapestry woven with threads of hope, fear, laughter, and love. "Dr. Wei," a voice called out, breaking him from his thoughts. It was the elderly man who had given them the charm. "You should stay. You've brought us back together. You have to keep coming back." "I'd like that," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. "But I think I need to learn a little more about this village first. Maybe I can bring some new ideas, mix them with the old. Just don't forget to bring some herbs next time," often teased, nudging him playfully. "We might need to ward off any more evil spirits." "Deal," he said, laughter bubbling between them. As the festivities continued, Dr. Wei looked around at the villagers, feeling a sense of belonging he had never anticipated. They had faced darkness together and emerged stronger. The well was no longer just a source of water, it was a reminder of the bond they shared, the power of community, and the magic that exists when people unite for a common cause. Under the stars, with laughter ringing in the air and friendships blossoming, Dr. Wei knew he would return to Yangzhai, not just as a doctor but as part of a community that had healed him as much as he had hoped to heal them. He had come seeking miracles, and in the end, he had found them in the most unexpected of places. With that thought warming his heart, he joined the villagers, embracing the magic of the moment, ready to celebrate the new beginning they had forged together. And as the night wore on, the stories of their adventure began to weave into the fabric of village lore, ensuring that the legend of the well, the evil spirit, and the doctor who came to save them would be told for generations to come.